Let's Fight 2. So this is a follow-up to my first video where I talked about in a argument or a conflict with your partner, the do's and don'ts to have a constructive conversation and get towards a solution. This is beyond that. This is when just the do's and don'ts are a little superficial. So this goes deeper into sort of the flow of the conversation and what can go wrong and how you can make it better and what happens when the do's and don'ts are violated and how we can bring it back to a constructive conversation. So just remember, this isn't professional advice. I'm not a counselor, but I am a married man, and I have had plenty of arguments and conflicts with my spouse. So I think I can speak from experience, but you might have a different situation, and if it goes beyond what we're talking about here, then I encourage you to get some professional counseling for either yourself or you and your partner. So arguments are an inevitable part of any close relationship. They're natural, and having arguments in itself is actually a healthy part of the relationship dynamic as long as they're done constructively. For many, conflict is a source of stress and anxiety, something to be avoided at all costs. But what if we could change our perspective on arguments and realize that they can be healthy and constructive too? So the conflict is not a sign of a failing relationship. You need to keep that in mind, because there are some situations where you might have been brought up in a home where your parents didn't fight, or at least in front of you, or they kind of stuffed their emotions, and maybe you think that conflict is a sign of failure. It's a sign that the relationship is failing. It's really not. And people who never have arguments or disagreements, they might be stuffing things. I've never heard of an intimate relationship that lasts longer than a few months that doesn't start having some things they need to work out. I think everybody has things they need to work out. We're all different. We have different motivations and life goals and passions and opinions and perspectives. So it's not normal for two people in a close relationship to never disagree. So don't feel abnormal when you have disagreements. It's good. And why we fight. So fights often erupt over seemingly trivial matters, really stupid things like how someone loads the dishwasher, or what time they go to bed or wake up in the morning, or what side of the toilet paper they put the roll on. It's trivial stuff, but usually underneath all that there's some deeper issues that we can get to the bottom of if we dig a little deeper. So a lot of times these are deeper unmet needs, fears, or past hurts that are being triggered. For example, an argument about leaving dishes in the sink might really be about feeling disrespected and unsupported. So sometimes we might blow up about how a chore wasn't done, but really it's that we feel disrespected or like we're not listened to. And maybe we came from a previous relationship where that was a big issue, and so we carried some of that baggage with us. So observation, the two extremes of conflict can be kind of what I talked about a minute ago: conflict avoidant or conflict prone. So I can tell you, in my marriage personally, we're conflict prone. We both want to address the issue, talk about it. We raise our voices a little bit. We get pretty animated, and we're conflict prone. There are some people who are conflict avoidant, and they try to avoid the difficult conversations. There's pros and cons to both, right? So the house is probably appears a little quieter and more peaceful if there's conflict avoidant people, but maybe they're not dealing with underlying issues, and then the house might be a little more loud, and if there's conflict prone people in the home, but they can get carried away with that too. So there's a danger in both directions. Both of those are unhealthy. You don't want to be conflict avoidant. You don't want to be conflict prone. There's a balance that you can achieve. Avoiding conflict leads to resentment and emotional distance. while constant fighting creates a toxic and unstable environment. The sweet spot is in the middle, where conflict is acknowledged and addressed constructively. So is it possible to have a good fight? Absolutely. A good or generative fight is one where both partners feel heard and respected, even if they don't agree. It's a fight that leads to resolution, a deeper understanding of each other, and a plan for how to handle similar situations in the future. Dr. Assael Romanelli talks about the relational diamond, and he says that a generative fight can unearth relational diamonds. In other words, these are hidden needs, fears, and dreams that are often at the core of our conflicts. By learning to dig for these diamonds, we can turn a moment of friction into a moment of profound connection. So we're looking to find sort of the diamonds in the rough, the things that are underneath the fights, so that we can get to know our partner better. And an interesting fact by the Gottman Institute, a leading organization in the study of relationships, has found that most successful couples who don't fight, the most successful couples are not those who don't fight, but those who know how to repair the relationship after a fight. In fact, they have a magic ratio of 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction during conflict. So every time we have a negative interaction, it does deplete our relationship and maybe our emotional bank a little bit. So we need to be consciously looking for opportunities to encourage each other and undo some of the damage from the negative interactions. And the Gottman Institute says it's about a 5-to-1 ratio is kind of the perfect ratio. So you want 5 positive things for every 1 negative. So there's phases to a constructive argument, right? It starts with the attack phase. It's basically a storm of emotion and words. This is the messy, emotional, and often chaotic beginning of an argument. It's where our grievances are aired and emotions run high. It's not pretty, but it's a necessary part of the process. The key here is not to try to suppress the emotions, but to navigate them without causing irreparable damage. So give yourself permission to be imperfect. During the attack phase, you're not going to be the perfect communicator. You might raise your voice, interrupt, or say things you don't mean. The first step is to be forgiving of yourself and your partner during this stage. It's not about being right, it's about getting the emotions out. So be careful during the attack phase. It's basically the beginning of an argument where you're both saying how you feel, getting stuff out that's been maybe bottled up a little bit onto the table to talk about. Just be careful you don't cross those lines in the do's and don'ts list that we talked about in the last video. So the flooding phenomenon. Flooding is a term used to describe the physiological response to overwhelming emotion during a conflict. Your heart rate soars, you're flushed with adrenaline, and your ability to think rationally plummets. Recognizing when you or your partner is flooded is crucial for knowing when to take a break. So I think we can all relate with being flooded with emotions. It's hard to recognize in the moment. It's usually after it happens that we realize that we were flooded. But try to actively recognize when you're becoming flooded with emotions and you're losing the ability to think rationally. And that might be the time when you ask your partner for a break and you ask to just take a 20 or 30-minute break if you feel like you can't think rationally anymore and you're totally flushed with adrenaline. So what are some of the ground rules for the attack phase? Even in the heat of the moment, some lines should never be crossed. Name calling, insults, threats of ending the relationship, and of course, any sort of physical violence. These tactics are highly destructive and can cause long-lasting damage. Don't ever resort to these. And if you want more details on some of the do's and don'ts, go ahead and look for my last video on Let's Fight, Part 1. The importance of acknowledging the fight. Simply saying, "It seems like we're in a fight now," can be incredibly helpful. It validates both partners' feelings and signals that you're in a specific temporary phase. This acknowledgement can prevent the fight from spiraling into something bigger and more personal. So just acknowledge that, okay, we're in a fight, right? It's a cycle that we all go through, and it's not just who we are or our relationship, but it's just a phase that we're in. We're fighting right now, and sometimes acknowledging it inside or saying it out loud can just help you both acknowledge, okay, yeah, let's make sure, since we're in a fight, that we're respectful and that we're following the rules that we set for these. An interesting fact is that our brains are wired to perceive conflict as a threat, which is why we often have a fight or flight response. The physiological reaction is due to the fact that we are a hybrid creature. We're emotional and spiritual beings living in a physical body with many animal traits. Understanding this can help you have more compassion for yourself and your partner during an argument. So it is completely natural to have the feelings and the emotions and all that. We shouldn't be ashamed of that. It's just how we react and how we make decisions in those moments that matter. So the cool down period. After the initial storm of the attack phase, a cool down period is not just a good idea, it's really essential. This is a deliberate pause in the conflict to allow emotions to settle and rational thought to return. Without the break, it's nearly impossible to move into the more constructive stages of the argument. So call a timeout, take a break if you need it. Agree on a word or phrase if it helps that either partner can use to signal the need for a break. It could be as simple as timeout or let's pause. It's important that this signal is respected by both parties without question or debate. The 20-minute rule. Research suggests that it takes at least 20 minutes for the body to calm down from a state of emotional flooding. During this time, it's important to do something that's distracting and soothing, such as taking a walk, listening to music, or reading a book. What should we not do during the cool down period? Don't continue to stew over the argument or rehearse what you're going to say next. This defeats the purpose of the break. The goal is to disengage from the conflict completely so that you can come back with a clearer mind. The art of coming back together. Agree on a time to resume the conversation before you take a break. This is crucial for building trust and ensuring that the timeout doesn't feel like abandonment or a way to avoid the issue or sweep it under the rug. It could be an hour, it could be after dinner or the next morning, but both of you need to agree on a time when you'll return to the conversation so that neither one of you feels like it's just being swept under the rug and forgotten about. An interesting fact about that, it can be incredibly helpful to use some breathing exercises. I know that might sound weak if you're in the heat of a moment, but just taking a break and doing some deep breathing can really help you. It gets oxygen flooded through your body. It can help your brain calm down, your adrenaline levels to go down. So breathing exercises, a cool down period. And then stage 2 is the admit phase. So after the break's over and you both come back to finish the conversation, it's time to admit and take responsibility of some of the ways that each of you contributed to the issue. So the power of I statements. Instead of saying, you always do this, try, I feel hurt when this happens. I statements focus on your own feelings and experiences, which are less likely to make your partner feel defensive. This simple shift in language can dramatically change the tone of the conversation. It's not about winning. In a relationship, if one person wins an argument, both people really lose. The goal of the admit phase is not to determine who's right and who's wrong, but to understand each other's perspectives and understand each other's experiences. So what if I don't think I did anything wrong? Even if you don't agree with your partner's perspective, you can still validate their feelings. You can say something like, I understand why you'd feel that way, or I'm sorry that my actions made you feel hurt. Taking responsibility for your impact, regardless of your intent, is a powerful act of love and respect. Identifying the missing piece. The missing piece is the underlying need that was triggered during the conflict. It could be a need for security, appreciation, autonomy, or connection. Asking yourself and your partner, what was the missing piece for you in that moment, can lead to profound insights and understanding. An interesting fact is that empathy is not a fixed trait. It's a skill that can be learned and developed. Actively trying to see a situation from your partner's point of view, even if you disagree with it, can strengthen your empathetic abilities over time. So stage 3 is the final or collaborative phase for building a stronger future together. A playful and hopeful perspective is what we're shooting for here. So the collaborative phase should feel lighter and more hopeful than the previous stages. You've made it through the storm, and now you're working together to build a stronger relationship. A sense of humor and playfulness can be incredibly helpful here. So it should be a more lighthearted end to the conversation where you're able to joke a little bit, give some lighter perspective and start wrapping things up in a more collaborative partnership way. It's not a one-time fix. You might not come up with a perfect solution in one conversation, and that's okay. The goal is to make progress, not to achieve perfection. Be open to trying different strategies and revisiting the conversation later if needed. So what are some examples of collaborative solutions? Solutions could be practical, like creating a new system for household chores, if the chores were the thing that was at the root of the disagreement. Or they could be more emotional, like agreeing to a specific phrase to use when you're feeling disconnected. The key is that the solutions are created together and they work for both partners. So you do want to end the collaborative phase with some actions going forward, some changes that one or both of you can make to help things heal and to help this particular issue not be such a big problem again. The importance of physical touch can't be understated. After a conflict, physical touch can be a powerful way to reconnect and signal that you're back on the same team. Holding hands, hugging, or simply sitting close to each other can release oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and help to repair any lingering feelings of distance. And I'll just throw this in. As a guy, the physical touch, you might just think of, sex, like the makeup sex or whatever, as the typical way to do that. That's really not the most effective way in this situation. When you're trying to heal a conflict after a disagreement, especially one that was maybe really painful or hurtful to one or both of you, an arm around her shoulder, a hug, a kiss on her forehead, something non-sexual can go a lot further. So, I know us guys tend to resort funnel all physical touch towards sex, but that's really not the goal here. So, and that can make her feel used too. So try to keep that in mind, that a hug, a kiss on the forehead, something non-sexual can be really powerful. So did you know an interesting fact is couples who feel like they're on the same team are more likely to be satisfied with their relationships? Of course. The collaborative phase is a powerful way to reinforce this sense of teamwork and partnership. So in summary, arguments in a relationship are not just inevitable, they're opportunities. By learning to navigate conflict constructively, we can turn moments of friction into catalysts for growth and intimacy. This process involves 3 key stages: the attack phase that we talked about, where emotions are expressed; the admit phase, where we take responsibility and seek to understand; and the collaborate phase, where we work together to find solutions. By embracing this framework, we can transform our relationships from a battleground of me versus you to a partnership of us against the problem. The goal is not a conflict-free relationship, but a relationship where conflict brings you closer together. So I hope that helped you guys, and if you enjoyed it or got any value out of it, give me a thumbs up, share it with somebody that you think could also benefit from this. And until next time, take care. I'll see you in the next video.